The Bible in Parallel Universes, The Meaning of Choice, by David Rousseau. Introduction. The moment before the choice. There is always a moment before something happens, before the word is spoken, before the hand moves, before a decision becomes something that cannot be undone. It is easy to look back on history, especially sacred history, and believe that everything unfolded exactly as it had to, that each event followed naturally from the one before it, that there was only ever one possible path. But that is not how life is experienced in the moment. In the moment, there is hesitation, there is uncertainty, there is more than one way forward. The Bible, at its core, is not just a record of events. It is a record of decisions, moments where individuals stood at the edge of multiple possibilities and chose one. A step taken or withheld, a word spoken or restrained, an action carried out or resisted. Now imagine something different. What if those possibilities do not disappear once a choice is made? What if, instead of collapsing into a single outcome, each possibility continues forming a reality of its own, a world where the decision was made one way, and another where it was made differently? This idea, often described as parallel universes, suggests that reality may not be singular, that at every turning point, existence itself may branch quietly, invisibly into multiple paths, each shaped by a different choice. This book does not attempt to prove that such worlds exist. Instead, it explores a simpler, more personal question. If they did, what would that reveal about us? Because when we begin to imagine familiar stories unfolding differently, something shifts. The events themselves become less fixed, and the meaning behind them becomes more visible. A moment we once saw as inevitable becomes fragile. A decision we once overlooked becomes central, and the distance between what happened and what could have happened begins to close. In that space, something important is revealed, not just about the people in these stories, but about the nature of choice itself, and about the weight it carries. Across every imagined outcome, one thing remains unchanged: the presence of God, not divided by different worlds, not altered by different decisions. The same whether a choice leads to wisdom or regret, courage or hesitation, action or silence. This is not an attempt to rewrite Scripture. It is an attempt to see it more clearly, because when a story is no longer confined to a single path, it begins to reveal something deeper than sequence or outcome. It reveals the significance of the moment before the choice, the point at which everything is still possible, and perhaps that is where meaning truly begins. Not in what has already happened, but in what is about to. Chapter 1. Adam and Eve, the first divergence. There is a moment before the choice. The garden is still. Nothing is broken. Nothing is missing. There is no sense that anything must change. The air carries no urgency, no pressure, only possibility. And yet, even here, there is a question. It does not arrive with force. It does not demand. It simply presents itself, quietly, as all meaningful choices do. In one world, the question passes. It is heard, considered, and released. Trust remains intact not because it is effortless, but because it is chosen in the presence of uncertainty. The fruit remains on the tree. The moment closes without consequence, and life continues without fracture. In another world, the hand moves, not quickly, not carelessly, but deliberately. The choice is made in full awareness of its weight. Even if that weight is not yet fully understood, the fruit is taken, the boundary is crossed, and everything begins to change. But there are other possibilities, less obvious and more revealing. A world where hesitation lingers longer, where the question is not answered immediately, but returns again and again, reshaping the way trust is understood. A world where the choice is delayed, not avoided until delay itself becomes a decision. And perhaps even a world where the question itself is answered differently, not with action, but with clarity, not with resistance, but with understanding. Across these worlds, the setting does not change. The garden remains the same. The command remains the same. The presence of God remains the same. What changes is the response, and from that response, everything else unfolds. It is tempting to see this moment as the beginning of failure or the beginning of wisdom, to assign it a single meaning, defined entirely by its outcome. But when viewed across possibilities, it becomes something else. the beginning of divergence, not simply between obedience and disobedience, but between paths that reveal different aspects of human nature. In one path, trust holds. In another, curiosity overrides it. In another, hesitation reshapes it. Each outcome carries consequences. Each consequence shapes a different world, and yet, beneath all of them, something constant remains: the ability to choose. This is what defines the moment, not the result, but the existence of alternatives. Because without alternatives, there is no decision, and without decision, there is no meaning in action. The story of the garden, then, is not only about what was done, it is about what could have been done and what that possibility reveals. That even in a place designed for harmony, choice exists. That even in the presence of clarity, uncertainty remains, and that the power to decide is not a flaw in creation, but a fundamental part of it. In every world imagined from this moment, one truth carries forward: the future is not simply received, it is shaped, and it begins quietly, almost invisibly, in the moment before the choice is made. Chapter 2. Cain and Abel. The space between feeling and action. Anger is a quiet thing at first. It begins as a tightening in the chest, a shadow that lingers at the edges of thought. It is not yet violence. It is a question of what to do with the feeling before it becomes action. In one world, Cain feels the anger, acknowledges it, and lets it pass. His hands remain empty. His brother lives. The moment closes without a fracture, and life continues with tension. Yes, but without catastrophe. In another world, anger is acted upon too quickly. The moment between feeling and action collapses, and a single decision creates consequences that echo across a lifetime. The ground itself seems to bear witness to the choice. A life altered irrevocably, a family fractured, a world subtly changed by one act of surrender to emotion. But there are other possibilities too. A world where the anger transforms redirected into diligence, creativity, or restraint. A world where the confrontation becomes dialogue, or silence, or understanding. Even a subtle shift in intention can ripple outward, changing not only the immediate moment, but the path of future choices. Across these worlds, the spark of emotion is the same. The challenge is not to feel, but to choose what follows. And in that choice, something profound emerges. Consequence is not born in the feeling itself, but in the action it inspires or the restraint it compels. Cain and Abel stand at a threshold. Every possible outcome depends on what is done, or left undone in the space between thought and action. That space, small and almost invisible, carries the weight of worlds. And here, a pattern becomes clear. Life is less a story of inevitabilities than a collection of possibilities. In every world imagined, the lesson is not merely about right or wrong. It is about how each decision shapes not only what comes next, but the very meaning of the self that acts. Even a single breath held before acting can shift the course of history. And in every universe, no matter the outcome, the choice exists. It is the space between feeling and action, the quiet moment of awareness that defines humanity, even more than the action that follows. The story of Cain and Abel, then, is not only about jealousy or rage. It is about the moments we are given, the decisions we make in response, and the endless possibility held within that pause. Because life and meaning begin not with the act itself, but with the question that comes before it. What will I do? Chapter 3. Noah. Obedience in uncertainty. The sky is clear, and the world appears unchanged. Yet a voice speaks, and a command is given, a warning that feels impossible, overwhelming, and yet urgent. The choice is not whether to act, but whether to believe. And belief itself is never simple. In one world, Noah listens immediately. He begins to build the ark, each beam and plank a testament to faith in what cannot yet be seen. The labor is hard, the days long, and the ridicule of others presses in, but he continues. The future bends around him as a result, not because he controls it, but because he chooses to act in trust. In another world, doubt lingers. Noah hesitates. The task seems impossible, the warning too strange to accept without proof. Time passes, and the decision slips into uncertainty. What might have been accomplished in faith is delayed, reshaped, or even missed entirely. The world shifts quietly, imperceptibly, along another branch of possibility. And yet there are worlds in between, worlds where Noah begins, stops, and begins again. Worlds where the people around him act differently, amplifying or diminishing the effect of his choices. In some, the ark rises slowly and imperfectly. In others, it becomes something unexpected, a symbol not just of survival, but of the tension between obedience and understanding. What all these worlds share is the same moment, a call, a choice, and the uncertainty that precedes action. The sky remains the same, but the decision transforms reality. Faith is not proven by immediate outcome, but by the willingness to move forward despite doubt. Obedience is not simply doing what is commanded, it is choosing to act when certainty does not exist. Noah's story, when viewed across these parallel possibilities, teaches a subtle but profound lesson. Consequences are shaped not only by the choices themselves, but by the courage or hesitation that precedes them. In the quiet of doubt, in the pause before action, the true test of character emerges. Across all imagined worlds, one constant persists, a decision made in trust or the refusal to decide at all ripples outward, and from that ripple, the shape of reality itself begins to form. The moment of uncertainty, then, is not a weakness. It is the crucible of possibility. It is where meaning is born. In the story of Noah, the lesson is clear. What matters is not only what happens, but the courage to act when nothing in the world yet guarantees the outcome. Chapter for Moses, the weight of saying yes. A voice calls from the fire. It does not demand. It asks. It invites. And in that invitation lies a weight heavier than any crown or kingdom. Moses stands on the edge of a choice that will define not only his life, but the lives of millions yet to come. In one world, he turns away. Fear, doubt, and the sense of inadequacy prevent him from stepping forward. The burning bush fades into memory. Egypt remains enslaved, the river of oppression unchanged, and history bends along a different path, a path in which the question was never answered. In another world, he accepts immediately. His hands shake, his heart pounds, but he steps toward purpose. Each decision that follows every confrontation with Pharaoh, every moment of leading, every difficult judgment is shaped by that initial yes. The future moves differently because he chose to act. Yet there are worlds in between, worlds where Moses hesitates repeatedly, answering in part, questioning at every step, testing his limits, worlds where he accepts the call but struggles with doubt and fear for years before truly embracing it. Each variation creates consequences both large and small, subtle and profound. Each shapes not just what happens, but who Moses becomes in response. The lesson lies not in the act itself, but in the choice to act despite uncertainty. Leadership is rarely a single moment of courage. It is the accumulation of decisions made under pressure, against fear, and in the knowledge that the weight of consequences may be far beyond one person's understanding. Across all imagined universes, one constant remains, the call itself, and the presence of the divine guiding, waiting, and watching. God does not force the choice. God presents it. The difference lies in whether it is embraced, avoided, or delayed. Moses' story, when seen through the lens of parallel possibilities, teaches a profound truth. It is not the call alone that defines destiny, but the willingness to answer it. And in that willingness, even hesitation has meaning, and even fear carries purpose. The weight of saying yes is not the burden of responsibility. Alone it is the threshold of possibility. In that moment, life itself diverges, creating worlds that reflect both what was done and what was nearly left undone. And in every world, the question remains, will you step forward or turn away? Chapter 5 Samson, Strength and Surrender. Strength is already present in Samson. It is a force of nature, woven into his body, his being, and the destiny that seems to follow him. Yet power alone does not define a life. What matters is how it is held and how it is surrendered. In one world, Samson guards his strength carefully. He resists temptation, measures his force, and allows it to serve a higher purpose. His power becomes a tool of protection, of justice, of purpose guided by discipline. The world around him is shaped by restraint, and his choices carry consequences that ripple outward in ways both subtle and profound. In another world, his strength is revealed too soon, too recklessly. Pride guides his actions, and the lives of others are caught in the crossfire. What was meant to serve becomes destructive. His own path is fractured, and the world around him is reshaped by impulsive power. Yet there are other worlds to where he loses his strength, either through betrayal, choice, or circumstance. Here, something deeper emerges: resilience, ingenuity, humility. Without the force of his body, the measure of his character is revealed in other ways. Even weakness can give rise to insight. Even loss can produce growth. Across all universes, one constant exists: the question of choice. Strength is not destiny, it is potential. And what Samson does with that potential, how he wields it, guards it, or surrenders it, determines the trajectory of his life and the lives of those around him. The lesson is not simple. Power without wisdom fractures. Wisdom without strength can falter, and the moment of decision, when to act, when to wait, when to yield, is where meaning takes shape. Samson's story, viewed through parallel possibilities, becomes a meditation on responsibility. Every choice, every action, every restraint, and every surrender creates a different world. And across these worlds, the lesson is the same. True strength is not measured by force alone, but by the awareness of when to use it and when to let it go. In every imagined path, the question echoes: what will you do with the power given to you? And how will the choices you make reveal who you truly are? Chapter 6: Solomon, the burden of wisdom. Wisdom is a gift and a burden. It is the ability to see what others cannot, to understand patterns, to weigh outcomes before acting. But knowing more does not simplify life. Often, it complicates it. For Solomon, every insight carries a cost, and every decision branches into consequences he cannot fully control. In one world, Solomon uses his wisdom with clarity and restraint. He resolves disputes, guides his people with fairness, and builds a legacy of harmony. Knowledge shapes the path before him, but he remains grounded. Consequences are measured, lives preserved, and the world bends toward stability. In another world, wisdom becomes overwhelming. Awareness of every subtlety leads to hesitation or overthinking. Decisions are delayed, opportunities missed, and unintended consequences multiply. Insight becomes paralysis, and the very gift meant to guide creation threatens to unbalance it. There are also worlds in which Solomon's wisdom leads to choices that surprise even him. He discerns a solution, acts decisively, and yet the outcome differs from his expectation. In some, it brings justice, but also unforeseen pain. In others, it fosters prosperity while seeding future conflict. Knowing more does not guarantee control. It magnifies responsibility. Across all possibilities, one truth remains: wisdom shapes the range of choices, but it cannot dictate outcomes. It illuminates paths, but the steps along them remain human. Solomon's gift is not merely the ability to know it, is the ability to carry the weight of knowing, and that weight is heavier than gold, heavier than kingdoms, heavier than life itself. Viewed through the lens of parallel universes, Solomon's story becomes a meditation on consequence. Every thought considered, every judgment passed, every lesson learned unfolds differently in each world, and yet, each variation reinforces the same principle. Knowledge is only meaningful when paired with discernment, courage, and humility. In the end, the burden of wisdom is not about answers, it is about choice. Even the wisest must decide, and the shape of each world depends on the courage to act despite uncertainty. Solomon's life reminds us that understanding is not a shield against risk, it is the call to navigate it with conscience and care. And in every imagined world, the question remains: how will you use what you know, and what will that choice reveal about who you truly are? Chapter 70: David and Goliath. The moment before impact. The valley is silent. The sun glints off armor, and even the wine seems to hold its breath. Two figures stand facing each other, one immense, confident, and seemingly invincible, the other smaller, untested, and yet filled with a quiet determination. The moment is simple, but it contains infinite possibilities. In one world, David lets the stone fly. It strikes true. Goliath falls. Courage and faith are rewarded, and a nation witnesses the triumph of the unexpected. The story unfolds as we know it, a narrative of victory and destiny. In another world, the stone misses its mark. David hesitates. Goliath reacts differently. Perhaps a conversation occurs, or an alternate action prevents immediate conflict. The outcome is changed, but the moment remains the same. A confrontation demanding choice, action, and resolve. There are other worlds, too. Worlds where David lays down the sling, questioning whether courage is enough. Worlds where Goliath pauses, distracted by a single act of mercy or hesitation. In each variation, the stakes remain, yet the outcome diverges. The story is no longer fixed. It expands into layers of possibility. What matters in every universe is not only what happens, but the instant before action, the space between fear and decision. That moment is where character is revealed. It is where choice shapes the future. Far beyond the immediate consequence, victory or failure is only part of the story. The courage to stand, the awareness of risk, and the willingness to act are the true measures of the moment. Through parallel possibilities, this confrontation becomes a meditation on courage, judgment, and the weight of responsibility. A single action can shift worlds, but even in inaction or hesitation, lessons emerge. Every choice, small or bold, shapes the ripple of history, and across all imagined worlds, one constant remains: the awareness of God's presence, the strength to act, the restraint to pause, and the insight to know when to move or guided by something beyond the moment itself. David and Goliath teach us that the measure of a person is not simply in the victory achieved, but in the decision to act at all, and in the infinite possibilities of that valley. Every version of courage carries meaning. The story begins with a stone, yes, but it is the space before it is released that defines the worlds that follow. Chapter 8: Jonah, running and returning. The call is clear, yet the path feels impossible. Jonah hears the voice, feels the weight of responsibility pressing on his chest, and instinctively turns away. The sea stretches before him, vast and indifferent, and in that expanse, a decision waits, a decision that will echo across worlds. In one world, Jonah obeys immediately. He steps into the unknown, travels to the city, and delivers the warning. The consequences unfold as they are meant to. People listen, lives are changed, and purpose is fulfilled. The path is not easy, but it is straightforward. His choice aligns with destiny, and the world shifts as a result. In another world, Jonah flees. He boards a ship, hides from responsibility, and seeks safety in avoidance. Storms arise. Fear confronts him. He is challenged, pressed, and forced to reckon with the consequences of inaction. The call does not disappear. It waits, and the world bends in response to his hesitation. Yet there are worlds in between, worlds where he begins the journey, but doubts at every turn, worlds where he adapts, resists, or even changes the way he delivers the message. Each choice creates ripples, sometimes subtle, sometimes vast, and the shape of reality itself responds to the willingness or reluctance to act. The story of Jonah is a story of resistance, and also of return. It is a meditation on the tension between personal comfort and responsibility, between fear and faith. Across parallel universes, his journey reminds us that purpose is not always accepted immediately, but rarely ignored forever. Even in the moments of running, there is meaning. Even in hesitation, there is revelation. The path chosen is never the only one, but it is always significant. Each possibility teaches the same lesson. The courage to confront what we resist is what shapes not just our destiny, but the lives of others around us. In Jonah's worlds, running does not erase responsibility, and returning does not erase consequence. Every choice carries weight, and every hesitation reveals truth. The prophet's journey is not only about obedience, it is about the intimate, inescapable interplay between fear, choice, and the call to act, no matter how impossible it may seem. Chapter 9: Esther, the choice no one sees. The throne room is quiet. The crown rests lightly on her head, but the weight of a nation presses on her shoulders. Esther knows the stakes. One word, one act, one moment of courage could mean life or death, not just for her, but for countless others. And yet, no one sees the moment before the choice. No one sees the hesitation, the fear, the uncertainty that fills the space. between knowing what must be done and acting upon it. In one world, she speaks. She approaches the king with courage and clarity, and the people she protects are saved. Her choice echoes outward, shaping the course of history and leaving a legacy of bravery. The outcome is remembered, celebrated, and studied for generations. In another world, she hesitates. Hours stretch into days. Words falter on her lips. The opportunity passes. Events unfold differently. Lives may still be saved, or they may be lost. The act of silence carries consequences just as powerful as action. There are also worlds in which she acts partially, deciding to intervene indirectly, relying on others to carry out the message, or choosing a strategy that shifts the outcome in unexpected ways. Each path creates a universe of possibility. Each decision ripples through history differently, yet the weight of responsibility remains constant. Esther's story, across these parallel possibilities, illuminates a profound truth. Courage is not always recognized. Decisions made in private, unseen moments can carry as much power as those made before an audience. Leadership is often defined not by the applause, but by the inner confrontation between fear and duty. The lesson is clear. Choice itself is transformative. Even hesitation, even doubt, shapes reality. Even the silence of a moment can alter the fate of worlds. Across every imagined universe, one constant remains: the presence of God, quietly watching, offering guidance without coercion, and honoring the freedom of choice. What defines Esther is not simply the action she takes, but the courage required to confront the moment before it, when no one else is watching. The story reminds us that our unseen choices matter, that the private decisions we wrestle with may carry consequences far beyond what we can perceive, and that the courage to act or the wisdom to wait is the measure of true character. In every world, the question is the same: will you speak when it matters most or remain silent? Chapter 10: God Across Parallel Universes. If every choice creates a new possibility, what remains constant? Not the events themselves, not the outcomes, not even the lives that are shaped and reshaped by decision. What remains constant is presence, the quiet, unchanging presence of God, across every world. Every path taken or avoided, every success or failure, God is there, not dividing, not retreating, not judging in the immediate moment. God simply is. Imagine the universe splitting at every turning point. One reality where Moses steps forward, another where he hesitates. One where David's stone strikes true, another where it falters. Each branch is unique, each consequence different, and yet, through all of them, the divine presence persists. God does not alter, does not vanish, does not intervene to force a particular choice. God allows the vast spectrum of possibility to unfold. Perhaps this is the greatest lesson. Choice is not a flaw in creation. It is the mechanism through which creation reveals itself. Every action, every hesitation, every silence, and every word contributes to the unfolding of life. And yet the sacred remains steady, observing, guiding, and honoring the freedom given. Across parallel universes, God is not diminished by the multiplicity of outcomes. If anything, each possibility magnifies the depth of divine patience and care. Every world, every choice, every ripple is acknowledged, every path sacred in its own way. The constancy of God contrasts with the unpredictability of human action. It is a reminder that freedom is real, and that with freedom comes responsibility. And perhaps this is why the stories of the Bible matter so deeply. They are not only about what happened, but about what could have happened and what that reveals about God and humanity. The patterns of courage, hesitation, love, and fear are not merely narrative devices. They are reflections of the infinite complexity of choice under the gaze of the divine. In the end, across every possible universe, one truth persists: God remains, unwavering, and it is within the space of our choices, both taken and deferred, that the measure of our lives is revealed. The divine does not dictate outcomes. It honors the moment before the choice, the act of choosing, and the worlds that unfold as a result. In every reality, every path, and every universe, the question remains: will we act with courage, wisdom, and faith, knowing that God is present in every possibility? Conclusion: this world, this choice. It is possible that there are many worlds, Worlds where every decision we make unfolds differently, where every path not taken becomes real somewhere else. It is possible that every choice ripples outward, shaping realities we cannot see, creating consequences we cannot fully know, and yet, none of those possibilities diminish the weight of this moment, this world, this choice. Across all imagined universes, the constant is not what happens elsewhere, it is what happens here. The future is not simply received, it is shaped. Every word spoken, every act of courage or restraint, every hesitation carries meaning. Even the choices that seem small, unseen, or inconsequential matter. They define us, they shape others, and they resonate in ways we may never comprehend. The Bible, viewed through the lens of parallel universes, teaches not only about people and events, but about the profound significance of decision. Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Noah, Moses, Samson, Solomon, David, Jonah, Esther, they all faced moments that could have unfolded in countless ways. And in every imagined world, their choices mattered, not only for themselves, but for all who followed. What this exploration reveals is simple, yet extraordinary. We are never merely passengers in the story of life. Even when paths seem predetermined, even when fear or doubt presses upon us, we are given the space to act. The weight of responsibility is real because choice is real. The courage to act, the restraint to wait, the humility to learn, these are the threads that shape the tapestry of existence. In the end, it is not about infinite versions of ourselves. It is about this one, this single life, this single moment, this single decision. It is here, in this reality, that our actions take root. It is here that meaning is created. And so, as the many possible worlds stretch endlessly before us in imagination, the lesson is clear. Consider the choices before you. Recognize their weight. Act with courage, with wisdom, with faith, and with love. Because this world, this life, this moment, this choice is the one that matters most.